Jambo. I've been following this conversation that erupted literally after Gachagua went and called elected members of parliament who are supporting government to gays. Um, the first person who actually dealt with this issue was Ishungwa to some extent, but the person who has developed it fully is Kawanjiko. And to a large extent, the reason Kawanjiko seems to have taken this thing personally is because Gachagua keeps using Kawanjiko as an example of a Kagere, of the kind of person he doesn't want to be elected for in 2027. Every time he talks to Mount Kenya region, he says, Mutikahemudu Takawajiko. Now, the irony of it and the hypocrisy of that statement from Gachagua is that Kawanjiko was the first member of parliament elected on a UDA ticket at a campaign that I was very involved in as team leader from the government side, with Gachagua being the team leader on the other side. That was UDA, though they were still in Jubilee. And Rigathi spent 3 months, as he keeps saying, in Kiambaa, campaigning for Kawanjiko. And he wrote a large and very emotional tribute to Kawanjiko when he won, about how charismatic he is and how impressed he is with the people of Kiambaa, blah, blah, blah. Now, we did not know many things about where the fallout between Kawanjiko and Gachagua came from until Gachagua called Kawanjiko a Kagege severally. And I think because Kawanjiko is still a young man, and I think he reached a point and he decided, kama mbaya mbaya. And he has had a press conference somewhere. And then he was on TV, I think yesterday, last night, on Inoro with Kamawa Kangede. And he literally tore into Gachagua, He spoke about how Gachagua demanded 5 million shillings from him for campaigning for him. And I mean, guys are making fun about it. Gachagua kept telling us, Kajiko ni mwana single mother. So people are asking, so this guy actually went to demand 5 million shillings from a guy who he had said he was helping, and Kanjiko even explained how he got that 5 million, how Gachagua tried to suggest, you're going to get a car grant. Usually a car grant is around 5 million shillings and it's given so that you don't use government vehicles. And I think what Gachagua expected was that Kawanjiko was going to give him that. But Kawanjiko went further, consulted, and apparently, according to him, got the money from Ruto, who was deputy president, and took it to Gachagua. And Ruto told him, please don't tell him you got it from me. What does that tell you? That there was already an understanding within the team that this guy and money was going to be a problem. But what I like about what Kawanjiko is saying, I have had my personal experience with Gachagua. And I keep injecting, just giving examples of certain things that Gachagua is doing that are taking us down into a ditch, right? Especially as Mount Kenya region. But listening to Kawanjiko was very refreshing to hear. I've always insisted that the people who impeached Gachagua were his friends. Kawanjiko was his friend. Kawanjiko owed his first election to Gachagua to a very large extent. And Kawanjiko was one of the people who impeached him, I've always explained that the member of parliament in Nyeri Town constituency today, Madenge, was campaigned for by Gachagua, but he was one of the people who impeached Gachagua. And the story goes on and on. In Nyeri alone, out of 8 people who were involved in the impeachment process, outside the governor, because he was not involved in the impeachment process. So we're talking about the women rep, we're talking about the senator, and 6 members of parliament. Out of these 8 people, Kagusha is the only one who consistently did not support the impeachment. Wandeto supported the collection of signatures the first time, then signed against the impeachment. Everybody else signed to impeach Gachagua. And these are people who are his village mates, literally. People he worked with very closely in 2022. What is it that they know or that they found about Gachagua that made them make the decision to impeach somebody who is their homeboy, Even as we go to other regions, we go to Kiambu, we go to Murang'a, we go to Nyandarua, it is always an interesting observation for me that the people who were closest, somebody like Wamatinga, had been Gachagua's CDF chairman for 5 years. Gachagua had supported him to run for Senate and he had been successful. And he voted to impeach Gachagua. You know, Eric, who had been an MCA, and when Gachagua was chosen as running mate for UDA, he agreed with Eric to become member of parliament and campaigned for him. And Eric became a member of parliament for Madeira, voted to impeach Gachagua. The reality of it is, we might want to say many things. Oh, they were given money. Oh, da da da. But money cannot be enough for you to actually betray somebody the way that looks. I keep saying, and I keep insisting, and my prayer is that a lot more members of parliament who impeached Gachagua do what Kawanjiko has said. Because when you listen to Kawanjiko, there's no way Kawanjiko wasn't going to impeach Gachagua. He's a guy who's come and demanded from you from 5 million. He has thrown you under the bus on a deal you guys were doing together about sugar. He has gone and asked you for mbuzis. He keeps intimidating you and using you as an example of the kind of people that he supported. Why would you support him? You will impeach him very, very quickly. And in fact, when you're asked, you say, I even paid him off for whatever support he gave me. So Gachagua has spent 1 year emotionally explaining to us how the people who voted against him to impeach him betrayed the community, betrayed Ruriri, betrayed the region. I think we need to listen. I think we need to hear. And this is a challenge to members of parliament who are in government, who impeached Gachagua. Please tell us why you impeached him. What was your personal experience? What was your personal challenge? What was your personal motivation to send Gachagua home? I would like to hear Wamatinga, for example. I would like to hear Mathenge. I would like to hear Eric. And don't be scared. Don't imagine there's a possibility of you avoiding the conversation about impeachment. If you avoid it, it will come and bite you in 2027. If it was you, remember the people who you're speaking to are the ones who voted for you in 2027. Whatever poison they have been given by Gachagua can be dealt with by you because they voted for you. I would suggest go to Mashinani, create small forums, explain to people why you impeached Gachagua so that you remove this poison that Gachagua has brought into the region, so that people stop emotionalizing his impeachment. They understand that, hey, Eric Nya impeached Gachagua. Ati amwikire atia? Then we know. Ati Mathenge impeached Gachagua niki? Then you know. That Wamatiga impeached Gachagua niki? Then we know. Mukami. You go to Kiambu, Ishongwa, you ask Kawajiko, Alice, let's have this conversation. Let us understand. Because clearly, there are very many things about Gachagua that the ordinary public doesn't know. I would never have imagined that Gachagua, for example, could have asked for 5 million shillings from Kawanjiko. But Kawanjiko is giving it with so much conviction. I'm waiting to see whether Gachagua is actually going to sue Kawanjiko for that. Because if he doesn't sue him, then clearly that is true. You listen to the fights, even during Parliament that day, as much as I was very emotionally involved against the impeachment 1 year ago, I remember I would listen to Faith saying what Gachagua used to call them. Kawanjiko gives an example of how he went to the office and he was chased. Karibu atupo nje na security. This is an elected member of parliament. This is how Gachagua was dealing with power. And to a large extent, 1 year later, I asked myself, I wasn't in Gachagua's team in 2022, but I keep hearing how he turned into this power monster, immediately became deputy president. I know how he destroyed businesses of friends of mine. Kawanjiko talked about one of them. I try to imagine the kind of ruthlessness and viciousness he took to the politics that he was doing with his colleagues, the kind of bullishness he went, how much of a bully he became, because I can see it. You can see him bullying Akina Kalonzo and trying to bully Akina Matiangi. Now imagine he's doing this without any formal power structure. Now what if he was a deputy president? Can you imagine what kind of bullying he would have been doing? Remember what he used to say about Azimio government, about us who are in Jubilee and in Azimio. How he used to talk about Uhuru, how he talked about Uhuru during the inauguration with hubris and pride and, just power had gone to his head. Now, this is what we saw. But for the members of parliament who impeached him, I suspect they each had a personal experience of the negative side of Gachagua. I'd like to challenge them. Let us get those stories so that our people understand who it is that they're dealing with. They understand the kind of political monster who is among us, who is trying to drive us. And so that we start asking ourselves, where is Gachagua taking us? What is his motivation? When you see a headline that says he will not be president, but he'll get 50% of government, he'll get 50% as what? Will it get 50% of business or 50% of positions? What accountability structure is going to be there to ensure that, because he's getting them on behalf of the region, that he's actually using them to the benefit of the region? This is an opportunity, gentlemen. And what Kawanjiko has started, what Ishungwa did on Kererembe, needs to be done by a lot more people who know Gachagua, who worked with Gachagua, who are friends of Gachagua. I'm one of the people who worked with Gachagua, and I do my part in just trying to expose the kind of person Gachagua is. I hope a lot more people are going to do that, so that the Mount Kenya region gets to understand who they're dealing with and why we must ensure he doesn't get anywhere near power again. So well done, Kanjiko. Well done, Ishungwa. I'm looking forward to listening to you, Eric, and your colleagues. Tell us. This guy you guys brought us as a deputy president, then you removed. What should we know about him? Sasa.